Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're thrilled this week to be coming to you live from our Kansas City studios. And we have in studio the House of Representatives Majority Floor Leader, Representative Mike Cierpiot. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
We're very excited to have you on for a couple reasons this week, and mainly because you have some news you're making.
I am. I'm decided I'm going to run for the Senate in the 8th Senate District in Lee Summit, Eastern Jackson County. I'm pretty excited about it.
So the Lee Summit is a district represented by Senator Kraus now.
It is.
Goes all the way to the eastern line of Jackson County in the southern part. Mm-hmm. How far up north towards 70 does it go? It
goes up. It has most of Blue Springs in it. Mm-hmm. It has Grain Valley. It has all of that kind of southeast corner of Jackson County. You're
in your 7th year in the House. What makes you want to run for the Senate?
There's a steep learning curve in Jeff City. I was amazed when I first got there, and it's been a long-term project. I know a lot more than I used to know, and I think my philosophy reflects the conservative nature of that district, much like Senator Kraus does today, and I'd like to continue that.
Well, it's just, I mean, Bill Kenney represented that seat. Mm-hmm. Matt Bartles represented Jackson County in the Senate. Will Kraus. There is a tradition of conservatives. Let me just start with the questions that maybe you don't get other places. Guns. You have a record of being very pro-Second Amendment. Is that something you can do in the Senate?
I am. I plan on continuing that. In fact, my wife has a concealed carry license. She's very proud of that.
Your wife is someone that everyone that watches this show knows, Connie Cierpiot. Are you sure she's not running? Because if she is, you probably should rethink.
I would not run against her. No, but she's done with Jeff City, but she's very encouraging for me.
Well, she probably wants you out of the house 5 months a year. I mean, she's probably getting used to it.
We've been doing this now for about 23 years, so yes, I think there's something to that.
You got it down. You are fresh off a special session where you were able to do something that, folks, it's kind of nice being over here in Kansas City, a place that's vibrant, and part of that is the Claycomo plant. You were in the legislature for that, correct?
No, they did the Ford Claycomo thing in 10 before I got there. I was sworn in January of 11.
So there's a similar thing people are hoping happen in the Boot Hill.
Right.
Possibly 500 jobs, good paying jobs, the kind that can transform an area, the kind that Kansas City's benefiting from right now. You were supportive of the measure?
I was. It's a lot of people don't understand. They think with utilities it's a win-lose, but it's not. Rather, when a customer goes away, that fixed cost gets spread out amongst the remaining customers. So when Noranda went away, their fixed cost of providing that power was borne by the rest of their customers for Ameren. And so having this company come in, I have not seen anything that actually predicts what the cost will be to other customers. There may not be no cost at all, but they have to use 50 megawatts. It's only Missouri has one customer right now using 50 megawatts. That's the Ford Claycomo plant. So if a company comes here with that kind of power need, it would be good for Missouri.
So let me ask you this: after this, if this works in the Boot Hill, or even if it doesn't, if a plant wants to come to any other part of Missouri, the similar things can be done, correct?
Absolutely, as long as they have that much new power needs.
The governor's committed to sign it, I suppose?
I believe he will.
Seemed like he was very much for it.
He was very involved, so I think he will.
Well, now legislators are preparing for another session. This time, it looks like to address abortion. What exactly can the state do to continue to limit the scope of abortions in Missouri?
Well, the way I understand it, St. Louis has done something to counteract state law on abortion providers in St. Louis, and that's the gist of what I haven't seen the language yet, but the gist of it is to prohibit sanctuary cities for abortion services.
So St. Louis has tried to expand access to abortion inside the city. And the state wants to supersede that law with a state law that would restrict that?
Right. That's the conflict we have down there often is local control, but in some areas we think it's important enough the state needs to step in.
You know, sometimes it surprises me that Republicans run on pro-gun, pro-life measures as usually the top two things on the push card. I assume in your state Senate race there probably will be a mention of you being pro-gun and pro-life. And some folks act surprised when you go to Jeff City and you pass and promote pro-life and pro-gun measures.
That's true. I think our caucus is very pro-life, and people shouldn't be surprised by that.
Do you think some folks will raise the argument, even folks that are pro-life, that this may not be special session worthy, that this isn't an extraordinary emergency session? What would you say to folks that pitch that argument?
I would disagree. I think if the governor decides, we'll come, and I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed. We tried to address it during regular session. It didn't make it to the finish line. I think it's well worth another. This past session, really, we were there Wednesday. They had committees Tuesday. The whole body was there Wednesday. The whole Senate was there Friday. So when it's something this defined, it's not that hard to do, and I think it can be handled in a week.
There's been a history of special sessions in the state that governors have called for economic development projects, Claycomo being one, the viewers here will know. That seemed to be pretty normal and in the vein. How many of these can you have, though, where it's like, Well, you know, there is a session that's 5 months long. If you couldn't get it done then, are some of the things, I saw one senator wrote, if just because your bill dies isn't an extraordinary circumstance for a special session.
I think that's true in most things. But I also think that if the governor calls it, it's his responsibility. I will answer the call. But I think also he has to be careful, because I've been to a special session when I first got there for Aerotropolis, if you remember that.
Yes.
And some tax credit things. The agreements weren't made ahead of time, and it fell apart. So I think you need to be careful that we do things that we can actually accomplish what we want.
You know your caucus very well. My assumption is if the topic is abortion, the House overwhelmingly supports it, and it is a day
I
in
think
Jeff
it
City.
will be a day for the actual bill after the committees do their thing.
In the Senate, it seems like no matter what condition the Senate's been in throughout session, there's always a PQ majority on an abortion bill, right?
I would guess there would be. I think they'd probably work. My guess would be the Democrats would say maybe not. Just take some time, go slow, but at some point let it pass.
The House has worked pretty closely with the governor. What do you think of the job he's done so far?
I think he's done a good job. I didn't know the Governor Greitens very well when he first got elected, but he's worked with us very well. He's kept us involved with his thoughts on things. I've been pleasantly pleased, particularly after the first 6 years when I really never saw the governor accept social functions.
So, looking at your race, Republicans, when they have these supermajorities, it ends up becoming, they have a hard time clearing primaries. You've seen in the statewide elections, most of them had pretty defined people that were being backed. Will the Republican Party in this case be able to clear the primary for you?
Oh, I don't expect them to. It's an open Senate seat. It's a plum. I think there'll be a lot of people. I know there's a couple of reps there now that are looking at it, and I wouldn't be surprised if some other folks don't take a look at it at some point. I don't expect a free pass. It's an open seat, and I plan on working for it.
So you served for 6 years with the Democrat governor. You said you didn't see a lot. You've served now for 6 months with the governor. You've seen quite a bit. What do you grade him? Has he beat your expectations? Is he not? What do you think?
I think so. I would give him a strong B, maybe A minus. He's signing all the bills and working for the bills that we've been trying to get. You know, Jeff City is one of those places like I do. I work there every day. It gets frustrating and you think you're getting nothing done. When you get done, go back home and look at the session. Some of the things we got done this year, any one of them would have made a great year in other years. So it was a really good year. You just lose sight of that fact when you're too close to it.
It is an interesting point to me. I mean, I think the governor, if you look at what he's accomplished, I mean, there's a lot of huge accomplishments. And he didn't seem that thrilled with the end of session. I mean, it's an interesting thing. And maybe it's one-party rule. Some folks criticize some of the tactics from dark money, et cetera. But if you just look at the accomplishments he's put his name to, I mean, it's a lengthy list.
It is. I think part of it is, too, kind of like President Trump coming from the business side. They're not used to the frustration of the legislative process. And I agree with that sometimes. It's sometimes maddeningly frustrating, but it's, I think it's good that we go slow. It's probably better that things take longer than not. So it keeps us from making too many mistakes.
Representative, thanks for joining us, announcing your state Senate run. Hope you'll come back and discuss as the campaign unfolds.
I'll do it. I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Right. We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. We have Senator Ryan Silvey on. He's come appropriately addressed. You're going to see Silvey in a tuxedo. Stick around.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
Nobody likes power outages, including us. That's why Ameren, Missouri is investing in new equipment and smarter technology to reduce outages and keep pace with future needs. And it's working. We're in the top 25% in the nation for reliability. And on average, our rates are 18% lower than other Midwestern states. Making sure the power's there when you need it. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back This Week in Missouri Politics. We're joined by our opinion maker panel, Jeremy Lafaver. Good to have you back, sir. Former representative.
Always good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Senator Jason Holsman. Welcome back, sir.
Afternoon.
Senator Ryan Silvey, the Kansas City tuxedo looks very nice on you.
Welcome back to Kansas City.
Thank you, sir. Brian, glad to have you back, sir. State House Blend, all things Kansas City media. Good to see you, sir.
Glad to be here, Scott. Thank you.
Let's start off with the top. A special session just concluded. Potential of 500 jobs for the boot heel. A little bit using a different mechanism, but there's been a lot of special sessions for economic development. This one's using electric rates as a thing. How do you think it turned out?
I think it was certainly a successful session from a certain standpoint. The governor got what he wanted. The senators who had concerns about the second part of the call for the special session, the part that would have given Ameren the freedom to raise rates to do infrastructure improvements and so on, they got what they wanted by getting that out of the bill. A lot of people can point to a win. I think there's another win in the special session for the governor, which is that he got a lot of videos. He got a lot of rallies, pictures of himself being able to present himself as the winner of the working class, the person who brings jobs to Missouri. We'll see how he uses those images down the road.
Senator Silvey, you came to Jeff City for the full week and worked on the bill even when it was in the House.
Sure.
While the rallies were going on, it looked like they were rallying against Doug Libla while on the second floor, while in the basement advocating for Doug Libla's exact position.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how that played out because Senator Libla was never opposed to the steel mill or the smelter portion of that bill. In fact, when it came to the Senate later, Doug Libla handled that bill.
So in the governor had two parts of the call. One part was ignored, one part was passed. I still think, though, the tactics were odd. Running ads against senators, that's an odd tactic.
Leading a mob with a pitchfork to put stickers on their doors that supported the position.
It was a little, to me, the difference is you have the governor on the second floor saying, stop blocking this bill, but you have his staff in the basement saying, do exactly what Doug Libla says. But still, if there's a factory built, huge win for the governor, right?
Well, I think that we've had a precedence of extraordinary circumstances where the timeliness of a company seeking to have employment in the state of Missouri has sort of initiated the special session call. We saw Boeing, Ford, Bombardier with mixed results in terms of success. So this sort of fit that example of when we believe that it's okay to bring us back in under the Constitution. And so it'll be interesting to see as we go forward whether that extraordinary factor remains a part of the constitutional call, which I'm not sure that it will. But
Talk
it did
about
this
the
time.
one they're preparing for a little bit later. Jeremy Lafaver, the governor, if he brings a factory to the state and 500 people are employed, it's a win. Republicans even had to say, good job, Governor Nixon, on Clay Como.
Absolutely. I think I think a lot of what Senator Holsman's talking about is to some degree inside baseball. The regular voter, the folks that are sitting at home, see a governor who's folksy and sort of looks like one of them, and he's leading a charge of people and battling against career politicians. It looks good for the governor, I think, from a grand scale. I think from inside the Capitol, I don't think it does him any favors, but I don't know that that's a strategy that he cares about.
But let's talk about, before we switch topics, Senator Silvey, you were heavily involved in writing this. This does not mean a factory's coming. What happens next?
Yeah, so simply if a factory, a steel mill wants to come, or if they want to reopen the aluminum smelter, they will have to petition the Public Service Commission for a special rate on their electricity, and they'll have to justify that, and then ultimately the Public Service Commission is going to decide. So this doesn't automatically give anybody a special break. It also doesn't automatically ensure that they come here. I mean, a lot of power has been put in the Public Service Commission.
You've served for a lot of this. This was all, even the second part of the call, dealing with grid modernization, was all a may, not a shall. There was times where people would have took that and loved it. They were on the consumer end of that. It was interesting how that debate's moved as times went on.
Yeah, and again, I think part of it is that it was included in the special session. The second part of that call clearly was not an extraordinary circumstance. I mean, those are issues that are highly complex that have been debated for several years. To think that you would put it in a special session and get it hammered out in 1 or 2 weeks is a little ridiculous.
So, call, half of it was answered. Dark money ads, but a success. If there's a plant, the governor's a winner, right?
Yes, in a manner of speaking. But here's the thing. I think the governor is a winner whether the bill had passed or not. Because if the bill passes, yes, here's a big success that he was able to achieve. If the bill doesn't pass, or if the jobs never come, hey, he did everything he could. The bill hadn't passed. He could say it's those corrupt career politicians, like the ones here at the table.
But a lot of
that's the difference.
Perception. I mean, the reality is this is a governor who signed right-to-work legislation. He's supported paycheck protection changes, the PLA, passed a preemption on minimum wage. So if you see what he's actually done, he's actually making it harder for people, working class Missourians, to have a better life, to make more money, to be more successful at the working class level. And so the perception that he's created, this sort of fantasy in the clips and the ads that he's cut together of an empty steel mill that he's going to bring these jobs to, as Lafaver says, that's going to look like he's doing folksy, playing well. But the reality is his policies that he's creating is going to leave a wake of devastation for the middle class workers in the state.
Jeremy Lafaver, I have actually been at that plant when it was still in service with you. If he employs those people, they don't care, right?
No, I don't think those people care, and I don't. To Brian's point, if he doesn't employ those people, I don't know that they care either. I think his message, whether it's right or accurate or whatever, is consistent and
maybe fits the age. Maybe fits the time we live in.
That's unfortunate.
It'll be interesting to see. This is a new strategy and a new system, but at least from my perspective, as somebody who's kind of stepped away at this point, I don't agree with it. But from my standpoint, it looks like it's working.
I'll just tell you, I was at that rally, and I've been to many, many, many rallies, more than I probably cared to. That was real. Those people were not folks that went to other rallies. They had real emotion. They didn't know when to clap. It was one of the best events I've ever seen. And I do think if those folks are thinking that this is going to happen now, and if it doesn't happen, and there's no guarantee this happens. I mean, there's a whole part the governor has to go produce now and get this done. It's sort of like funny when Senator Schaaf asks who's blocking Blue Alert now. There is a second part to this, and if he succeeds, he'll get praise. Senator Silvey, the dark money aspect. It's almost like he does all these things, and if you look at the record, it's like, wow, terrific accomplishments. But sometimes the rhetoric and then the dark money ads, I don't know what the argument is for why they're worth it.
Yeah, it's concerning to a lot of us, this shift away from transparency and into dark money, because I was there in 2007 when we voted to get rid of campaign limits. We had an issue before where we were limiting contributions, people were filtering them through multiple PACs, and we thought that was destructive. And so our justification for removing campaign finance contribution limits was transparency, so at least people would see what's going on. Now, here we are a decade later, and the pendulum has swung completely back, and now we're bringing back campaign limits and just running all the money underground. And it's really kind of frustrating to a lot of us.
Brian, the old system was bad. It was not good. There were all the judicial committees. It was not a good system, no matter what you thought of it. Maybe unlimited contributions are bad too, but at least you can see. But in Missouri law, you've set up a way for a Carl Bearden at United Missouri or NARAL or the NRA to have a thing, and you don't know the donors. You can debate whether that's good or not, but there is a system set up, and we saw this in Tony Messenger, who's on fire right now, wrote a column about how there was an on-the-record check from Chief Standing Pair, it's not a joke,
Osage Nation,
and then a $50,000 dark money check. The state set up a way to raise money, not the second way, right?
Right, and I think, that which makes the point that these criticisms of dark money may be valid, but money that's given fully in the light doesn't seem to be any less influential. We're seeing throughout this session, we've been dealing with allegations about pay for play and involving Republican leadership in the Senate. Those are on the record donations that are at issue. Given before the deadline that would have limited some of those donations. There's the culture in Jefferson City, at least from those of us out here in Kansas City and far enough away, it appears that there's a fair amount of impunity about being willing to accept donations and then not hesitating to act in support of those who gave the money. So I don't know if it's all about the dark money.
I don't see anybody losing elections because of the contributions or where they come from. The dark money seems to be the point I've heard you make even is a little hypocritical to run on ethics, to call other people unethical, and then have a dark money committee.
Well, what we're going to have is two systems, and we have a system that is transparent, it has limits, and has accountability.
Why would you even use the other system if you're
Well, that's the thing. Eric Greitens setting up this other system, leading the way in how to be unethical with the contributions. how long is it going to take for those who still participate in the transparent system to figure out that there's very little consequence in participating in the dark system? I say another election cycle, maybe 2, and then you'll have a shell transparent one that everybody sets up, but the real money will all transfer through the C4 system, and that's what's going to happen.
I mean, that does not seem to be, when you look at all these different systems, just from the outside looking in, the no limits ones seem to be at least the most transparent, so you could tell. If you can't keep the money out, at least know where it's going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The hard thing is, from a basic voter standpoint, I think they have a hard time believing that many politicians, myself having been one, aren't engaged in something nefarious with their money anyway. And so if I'm doing a completely upfront and honest, transparent system, there are going to be a significant portion of the populace that think that I'm probably not doing things with my money the way I'm supposed to anyway. And I think that there's enough lack of accountability on the voters' behalf that I don't know that they're going to hold people accountable for doing this kind of stuff.
It's interesting. I agree. I mean, you could question a lot of big donations. Governor Nixon said one time if the legislature wouldn't put ethics reform on the ballot, or through the legislature, he'd put it on the ballot. He never did that. I think that Sean Nicholson right now is working on a new thing that's going to theoretically try to clean things up. I just think every time the voters vote, they'll vote to try for ethics.
Sean Nicholson from Progress Missouri fame.
Yes.
The 501c4.
There you go.
Okay.
But they're not a
70% of the voters, both Republican and Democrats, voted in favor of Amendment 2. And in that, it reestablished disclosure laws, transparency, contribution limits, and the voters overwhelmingly said, this is the system we want you to partake in. And the governor's leadership is saying, I'm going to snub that 70% of the voters, and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it because it's easier. And for us in the legislature, we have to question what influences does the governor listening to make the decisions he's making, the signs of the bills he's signing, to veto the bills he's vetoing, to call us into special session. What influences are behind the decisions? And if you don't see where the money is, let's say that he would have granted that casino, or he does grant that casino in Silvey, Missouri. If at that point in time, if we never would have known that Osage Nation had given a $50,000 contribution to this dark money PAC, then you wouldn't have an idea that that could be influenced by that contribution. And I think that the voters, even though they sort of glaze over when you start talking about the minutia of this ethics, they deserve, and they voted, and 70% of them said, we want to know. We want to know that transparency. We want to know who's influencing you.
So a lot of that thing they voted for was kicked out in the courts. Does it not show some of the fallacy of trying to do this by referendum? And maybe although it's fashionable to hate them, the people that pass these laws actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we need to address it at the legislature. We need to have these ideas vetted and debated, not just drafted by somebody and put up for a referendum. I mean, the courts have shown that that's not going to work. But Jason's absolutely right. I mean, it's only a matter of time before you see everyone in Missouri politics go down that road. I mean, under Governor Nixon, he used to criticize the six-figure checks constantly and call for limits, but he took more six-figure checks than anybody in the state at that time. And so that just shows you play under the rules that you have, and as soon as everybody figures out that these are the new rules, you're going to see senators, reps, leadership, everybody going down that path.
So let's talk. State House Blend is about to have another interesting topic. It looks like legislators are preparing for a special session. Looks like dealing with abortion, something called a sanctuary city. What do you think? I mean, there was two bills, one by Senator Wallingford, one by Senator Onder. What do you think's going to be in that?
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Scott. But I will say that what we're sure to see is a session that is less clear about its purpose, less direct in getting to its goal than the one we just saw.
And less precedented, right? I mean, there's been precedents for sessions to bring
economic
jobs.
development, and sometimes sort of particular thorny issues that have a time-sensitive outcome. But here's something that the General Assembly's been debating for years in one form or another. Presumably, the bills that are on the agenda are going to be things that just didn't make it during the regular session that the governor wants to take another shot at. But to think that they're going to go any more smoothly, particularly I think in the Senate, where there's lots of tools to slow down the process, I think is unrealistic. So I guess the question I ask from a political standpoint is what is the governor looking for beyond the particular outcome on those bills? Does he want to be able to point to a fight that whether he wins it or not, if he doesn't get the full results he's looking for, is it worth calling a special session? And I think the answer apparently in his mind is yes.
So, Senator Silvey, it looks to me like, just from sitting in the popcorn gallery watching the Senate, that there's not an appetite for a bunch of special sessions. But I've never seen the Republicans, even in the Senate, not pass whatever abortion bill was in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Constitution says that we have to have extraordinary circumstances to call a special session. I would argue, even on an issue that's popular, like an anti-abortion measure, it's still not extraordinary in nature. It's not immediately time sensitive.
Does that mean you won't vote for it?
I'll vote for it, but I'll also vote to adjourn if somebody makes that motion, because I don't think it's extraordinary.
Is abortion an issue that Democrats in the Senate can effectively stop?
Well, our job is not to necessarily stop the legislation, it's to effectively compromise to a place where we mitigate the damage to a woman's right to choose. And the courts are also involved in this as well, because we've pushed the envelope as far as we can to stop abortion. I mean, the 72-hour waiting period, the other measures that have been passed have all been designed to make it more difficult for a woman in the state of Missouri to get an abortion. I think they've pushed that as far as they can. The rest after that is going to be the federal courts have pushed back. So the rest of this is rhetoric. It's playing to the base. It's politics, and I don't feel that the Democrats have to stop everything, but we should have a role in making sure that policy is as good as it can.
Jeremy Lafaver, an abortion bill gets PQ in the Senate if it has to and passes, right?
I think it probably gets PQ'd, but I am interested to see if the Senate's willing to bow to the governor and say, yeah, whatever issue you want, we'll pass it. I think it's important for people like Ryan and others to go in and say, is this really constitutional? Do we need a full-time legislature, or is this really going to be a citizen legislature?
Brian Ellison, with a minute left, who won the week?
I'm going to say that the representative who's getting out, Representative Randy Dunn,
good guy,
Democrat of Kansas City. We're talking to him this week on State House Blend, Missouri, and I think he's probably making the move to Omaha at just the right time.
Senator Silvey, who won the week?
I'm going to say Senator Doug Libla. I mean, he started the week getting attacked by a dark money group backed by the governor, and he ended the week carrying the bill that hopefully brings jobs to the boot heel.
Who won the week?
I'm going to say Senator Doug Libla as well.
Hard to argue with. I mean, he kind of went first. And
the issue of having someone go into your home district and make false allegations about where you want a position, a very emotionally charged position, and then to have the statesmanship and the maturity to say, you know what, it's really important that we get this done for my people. I don't care who gets the credit for it. I'm going to work hard for it. And that's what Doug did. He rolled up his sleeves and he helped Ryan and others get it done. So he won.
Who won the week?
Well, since I can't take Senator Libla.
They did steal him, yeah.
Yeah. I got to go with the speaker. And just by default, you've got three leaders of the big sort of factions. You got the governor, Ron Richard, and the speaker. And time again, Speaker Richardson comes out as the only adult in the room.
How do you like the speaker sitting in the Senate bill they had to take with no amendments?
Yeah.
Doesn't happen a lot.
No, it doesn't.
I'll break. I mean, since you guys stole live, I'm going to say the governor. If he puts a plant in, I'm telling you, I was at that rally. It was one of the most emotional things I've seen. If he puts a plant in that employs those folks, I say he wins. Now, if something doesn't happen, there are going to be some very disappointed people in Southeast Missouri. But we hope you're all not disappointed. You'll all come back to join us on This Week in Missouri Politics. And we'll see you next week. That's This Week in Missouri Politics from Kansas City. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.